Commander Rex Vance had thought he had seen everything the galaxy could throw at him. He'd fought on the scorched dunes of Orion 3, trudged through methane swamps on Calderon, and faced pirates, mercenaries, horrors that still haunted his dreams when the lights went out. After nearly 2 decades in the Terran Security Corps, his name carried quite a reputation for finishing any job, no matter how dirty or dangerous. So when Central Command offered him a quiet posting on Earth, Rex thought it would be a peaceful retirement from the front lines. The assignment looked simple enough on paper: serve as personal security for 2 visiting Lysarian dignitaries, Zarya and Lyra, twin daughters of the Lysarian High Regent who were attending diplomatic schooling at Earth's Interstellar Academy. Babysitting alien nobles sounded tedious but safe, and after years of gunfire and blood, tedium was something Rex was willing to try. But his first glimpse of the twins shattered any expectation of normalcy. The Lysarians were unlike any species Rex had encountered. They stood a head shorter than him, slender and graceful, with translucent skin that faintly glowed in dim light, as though starlight pulsed beneath their flesh. Their eyes were swirling galaxies of color, shifting slowly like nebulae caught in eternal motion. They wore elegant robes threaded with living, bioluminescent strands that shifted patterns in response to their moods, a form of nonverbal expression unique to their species, and, though they were identical in appearance, their personalities could not have been more different. Arya was fire. She greeted Rex with an irreverent grin and an endless stream of questions about human combat styles, city nightlife, and how fast his reflexes really were. She wanted to sneak out into the city, ride hoverboards down skyscraper spires, and taste every piece of junk food in the vending machines. Lyra, on the other hand, was ice cool, distant, and razor-sharp. She barely glanced up from the glowing data slate in her hands when Rex was introduced, and her first words to him were, "Your rifle's M signature will interfere with my quantum harmonic studies. You'll need to recalibrate it." From that first meeting, Rex knew he had his work cut out for him. Still, he approached the job like any other mission. He installed stealth surveillance fields in their embassy quarters, ran daily security sweeps, and coordinated with local law enforcement. The embassy's security chief considered the threat level low, but Rex trusted his instincts, and his instincts were screaming that something wasn't right. The twins were political prizes, after all, heirs to immense wealth and influence on Lysari. That made them targets. His paranoia proved justified. Within days, he intercepted 3 suspicious data probes aimed at the twins' personal channels. Then came the cloaked drone skimming the balcony at midnight. Rex blasted it from the air with a precision shot, retrieving its shattered chassis before the twins even knew it had been there. The embassy brushed off the incidents as false alarms. Rex disagreed. Despite the lurking threat, the twins carried on with their routines, Arya diving into cultural exchanges and sparring clubs, Lyra buried in diplomacy lectures and alien linguistics. They tolerated Rex's constant presence, but treated him like an inconvenient shadow. Arya teased him endlessly. Lyra pretended he didn't exist. It suited him fine. He preferred being invisible. That changed on the 8th night. A thunderous explosion rocked the building, shattering glass and hurling a shockwave through the entire wing. Rex was already moving before the alarms finished screaming. He sprinted through smoke-filled corridors, rifle ready, heart hammering with combat instincts that had never dulled. He burst into the twins' quarters to find them wide-eyed and frozen, the glow of their skin flickering erratically with fear. They weren't unhurt, but they were shaken to their core. Rex swept them behind cover, checked the windows, sealed the chamber, and barked into his cum for backup. It took only minutes to confirm that the blast had targeted the embassy itself, though the twins' wing had been spared. This time, as emergency teams swarmed the building, Rex stayed crouched between the twins, scanning every shadow, every movement. They stared at him in silence, no teasing, no cold disinterest. Just raw fear breaking through their practiced Lysarian composure. In that moment, they stopped being distant alien nobles. They were just 2 young lives who needed someone to keep them safe. That night, a new order came from Central Command. The threat level had been elevated, and until further notice. Commander Rex Vance was to relocate into the Twins, or private quarters, to provide full-time close protection. Rex had lived in trenches where the air itself stank of fear, on warships where he shared metal bunks with 50 snoring soldiers, and in forward outposts where rats were better company than humans. But nothing had prepared him for sharing a luxury penthouse suite with two royal alien sisters who glittered like living stars and argued like twin THUNDERCLOUDS. The first evening of his new living arrangement set the tone. He arrived with his duffel slung over one shoulder and his pulse rifle across his back, only to be intercepted by Arya, who stood with her hands on her glowing hips and declared, "You're not dragging boots over crystal floors. This whole place is art." She pointed to his feet like they were contraband. Lyra, perched on a floating chair and surrounded by orbiting holoscreens, didn't even glance up when she added dryly, "And keep that rifle out of the quantum lattice field. Its M discharge will collapse my harmonic models." Rex paused in the doorway, took a slow breath, and muttered, "This is going to be hell." And it was at first. He was used to being invisible on missions, a ghost in the background. Now he was always in their space, and they were always in his. The suite was massive 3 stories tall, with balconies overlooking the glittering city, but somehow it felt small with the twins in it. They were constant motion. Arya would blast human rock music at full volume while trying to learn how to dance like Terrans, while Lyra muttered equations to herself and scowled at the rhythm like it personally offended her. Rex tried to establish order. He scheduled patrol circuits through their private garden, secured their doors, and assigned drone sentries to each window. The twins tolerated it, barely. Arya called him Captain Stiffspine and accused him of turning their home into a prison. Lyra treated him like an especially noisy household appliance. But at night, when they thought he wasn't watching, Rex noticed the cracks. Arya would linger by the windows, staring at the city lights with restless eyes, her glow dimmer than usual. Lyra would fall asleep slumped over her console, dot screens, flickering with half-finished work as if she was trying to outrun something in her mind. They tried to act fearless, but their composure was just a thin shell end after the bombing. Rex understood why. Someone wanted them dead, and they knew it, so he stayed close. He became their silent shadow, trailing them to classes, to galas, even to their endless etiquette lessons. He carried their bags, deflected overly curious paparazzi drones, and occasionally glared down smug Lysarian nobles who thought the twins were easy prey. Arya complained that he was ruining her fun. Lyra complained that his heavy boots disrupted her focus. But they stopped objecting when he sat outside their sleeping pods at night, rifle across his knees. Then slowly, something shifted. Arya started talking to him not just about sneaking past security, but about his life. She wanted to hear war stories, asked about his scars, his medals, whether humans really laughed during combat like the legends claimed. Rex didn't mean to answer, but her curiosity was relentless. Lyra, at first silent, began quietly listening in. One evening, she even interrupted with a question about human neural stress limits, which led to a midnight debate about why humans seemed to get stronger under pressure while most species broke. Rex found himself explaining instincts he had never tried to put into words before. The barrier between them was cracking. Rex also found himself doing things he never thought he would. He fixed Arya's malfunctioning hoverboard after she nearly catapulted herself through a wall. He installed a firewall on Lyra's data systems so tight that even Lysarian cyber warriors would struggle to breach it. He even cooked once when their service drones short-circuited protein rations and fried starch, which Arya declared glorious and Lyra declared inedible while finishing every bite. They were still chaos embodied. They argued about everything from art styles to orbital mechanics. They teased him relentlessly, tested his patience daily, and left glowing footprints on his freshly cleaned boots. But they were also beginning to trust him. He could see it in how Arya glanced toward him whenever someone unfamiliar got too close, or how Lyra's sharp tones softened when she handed him one of her data slates without explanation. Trusting he'd protect the contents, they were starting to treat him less like a guard, more like Theirs, and all the while, Rex's instincts screamed louder. He had intercepted coded transmissions on the outer channel's messages hinting at a coming strike against the twins. The embassy dismissed his warnings as paranoia, but Rex had lived too long in war to mistake the smell of danger. Something was circling closer, waiting for the right moment to strike. The city below their embassy glimmered under a curtain of silver, a steady drizzle painting every window pane. Rex didn't like the quiet. The twins were scheduled to attend an interstellar cultural symposium that evening, a routine diplomatic event filled with speeches and ceremonial dances, but something about the stillness clawed at his instincts. To calm. Too neat. He checked and rechecked every perimeter drone. He ran 3 extra sweeps on their transport skimmer. He even recalibrated his rifle twice, though it didn't need it. The twins noticed, of course. Paranoid much. Arya said as she adjusted the glowing filigree on her formal robe. We're going to a bunch of speeches. It's not a battlefield. That's what worries me, Rex replied flatly. Lyra arched one glowing brow without looking up from her data slate. Statistically, the chance of a direct attack during a formal symposium is less than. Statistics won't stop plasma bolts. Rex cut in, and that silenced her. They departed under a security escort, their skimmer gliding through neon-lit air lanes toward the glittering spire of the symposium tower. Rex stood behind the twins during the opening ceremonies, eyes sweeping every entrance, every shadow. His instincts were buzzing like a live wire now. Then everything went black. One moment, the grand atrium was ablaze with light and music. The next, darkness slammed down like a hammer. The sound systems died. The floating chandeliers flickered and fell. Panic swept through the crowd as alarms shrieked. Rex was already moving. Stay behind me, he barked, grabbing both twins by the arms as shards of glass rained from above. The emergency lights flared and revealed masked figures descending from shattered skylights on gravelines. Weapons drawn and glinting in the gloom. Assassins. They moved fast and precise, cutting down the outer security drones before anyone could react. Screams echoed as civilians scrambled for cover. Rex shoved the twins behind a toppled display column. His rifle spitting blue plasma bursts into the advancing shadows. The assassins' return fire sizzled across the floor, scorching crystal tiles where the twins had stood seconds earlier. Arya, can you hack the door controls? Rex shouted over the roar of weapons. On it, she yelled, pulling a cracked datapad from her sash, hands trembling but eyes blazing. Lyra, how many hostiles? Rex demanded. Lyra's gaze glowed faintly as her ocular implants scanned the chaos. 9, no, 11. 2 on the roof. They're hurting us. Not if I get there first, Rex growled. They fought their way through the smoke-filled hall, Rex leading with unrelenting fire, the twins close behind. He moved like a living barricade, broad shoulders shielding them from every angle, every step calculated. Arya cracked security locks as they went, slamming barriers down behind them. Lyra whispered precise directions in his ear, mapping escape routes faster than he could ask for them. But the assassins were closing in. They reached the emergency stairwell only to find it sealed from the outside. The sound of cutting torches screamed on the other side. Roof access, Lyra said sharply. It's the only way. Rex nodded grimly. They sprinted upward through the winding stairs, boots pounding, hearts hammering. The roof access door burst open and revealed more assassins waiting, black armor gleaming in the rain. For a heartbeat, everything slowed. The downpour hissed around them. The city lights blurred through sheets of water, then Rex charged. He hit the first assassin like a meteor, tearing the weapon from their hands and using it to smash the second. Plasma bolts flashed around him as he drove the twins toward the far edge of the roof. Arya screamed something about an emergency drone pad. Lyra was already calculating trajectories aloud, her voice steady despite the chaos. Jump, Rex barked. Jump, Arya yelped. Trust me. They leaped together as the assassins opened fire. Behind them, the roof detonated, shards of flaming debris whirling past as the building crumpled into itself. The trio plummeted through the storm, wind howling like a beast. At the last instant, Arya triggered the escape drone she'd hacked mid-fall, and its grav chute snapped open with a violent jolt. Yanking them out of the deadly plunge, they slammed down on a rain-slick rooftop blocks away. Rolling across the surface in a heap of tangled limbs, gasping and coughing water for several long seconds, none of them moved. The city roared around them, sirens wailing in the distance. Then Arya sat up shakily. Okay. That was actually kind of awesome. Lyra just stared at Rex, her usually sharp expression stripped bare. You didn't hesitate. Wasn't planning to let you die, Rex said simply. Checking the perimeter again, even as his muscles shook with exhaustion, it was the first time either twin looked at him without arrogance or amusement. Just wide, silent gratitude. By the time they reached the embassy again, the building was on lockdown, and the entire diplomatic corps was in uproar. The attack had been far too coordinated to be random. And now the twins were priority. The embassy was locked down under heavy security. Patrol drones circling like silent hawks, and guards posted at every entrance. Yet inside the penthouse suite, the air had shifted in a way no security protocol could explain. Arya and Lyra, once two distant stars in Rex's orbit, were suddenly much closer to close at times. For the first few days after the attack, they hardly let him out of their sight. Arya followed him from room to room, asking endless questions about tactics, human soldier instincts, and how he had stayed calm while the roof literally exploded under their feet. She still wore her irreverent grin, but her glow pulsed erratically at times, betraying her lingering fear. Lyra spoke less than usual. Yet Rex caught her eyes flicking toward him when she thought he wasn't looking, measuring, reassessing. As if he'd become an equation she hadn't solved yet. They didn't treat him like furniture anymore. They treated him like their anchor. At first, Rex kept his professional walls high. He spent hours upgrading their security systems, new biometric locks, scrambled cum lines, and hidden defensive turrets tucked behind ornamental plants. He patrolled every balcony at dawn and dusk, methodical and silent. When they spoke to him, he responded with clipped words, but the walls didn't hold for long, because the twins weren't just ornamental nobles. They were alive in ways that chipped at his defenses. Arya had an infectious energy, a reckless delight in everything from human video games to zero-G dance routines. She dragged him into her chaos like gravity. Lyra was her opposite, quiet, meticulous, and devastatingly sharp. But with moments of dry humor that slipped out when she forgot to hide them, they began pulling him into their world. It started small. Arya convinced him to help calibrate her combat drones. For fun, she claimed only for her to secretly reprogram them to chase him through the suite in a mock battle. Rex disarmed them all in 30 seconds, which made her shriek with delighted outrage. Lyra then insisted on testing his neural reflexes in her lab corner, attaching him to an array of glowing coils while she analyzed his reaction times. She didn't comment on the results, but the faint upward curl of her lips was the closest thing to praise he'd ever seen from her. Soon, they were eating together too. The twins' nutrient rations were elegant, geometric things that tasted like flavored mist. Rex's meals were hearty human fare-seared protein slabs, grilled starch, and bitter black coffee. At first they turned their noses up at his primitive sludge, but curiosity won. Arya tried a bite, then devoured half his plate. Lyra complained about the seasoning ratios while quietly finishing the rest. They were becoming a strange little household. Rex still slept lightly. Always half-armored and armed, but the nights were different now. He no longer waited outside their sleeping pods. Instead, he set up his cot in the corner of the main chamber, while the twins slumbered nearby, their soft bioluminescent glow casting gentle light across the room. He found it oddly soothing. The silence was no longer tense, it was warm, but peace never lasted. Rex intercepted more encrypted transmissions, ghostly fragments hinting at another strike. Whoever had targeted the symposium hadn't given up. He doubled their security measures again, added cloaked perimeter drones, and began training the twins for emergency combat. To his surprise, they agreed. Arya threw herself into training with reckless enthusiasm, diving into sparring drills and treating every move like a game. Lyra approached it like she did everything systematically, mastering each technique with quiet precision before moving on. They were awkward at first, uncoordinated, unused to physical combat, but they learned fast. Faster than most humans, even. And Rex felt something shift again this time in himself. They weren't just charges to him anymore. They were his team. One evening, after an exhausting training session, they sprawled on the suite's main balcony. The city stretched below them, lights glimmering like constellations. Arya leaned back on her elbows, hair damp from exertion, and said softly, "If they come for us again, we'll fight this time." Lyra, seated cross-legged with perfect posture, added, "And we'll win. Because we have you." Rex stared out over the skyline, the weight of their words settling over him like armor. He hadn't planned for this. He wasn't supposed to care. But somewhere between the firefights and the shared meals and the laughter sneaking into their days, he had stopped being just their guard. He was part of them now, their protector, their shield, and, though he wouldn't say it aloud, maybe, their family. But in the distance, across the dark skyline, silent shadow moved a faint glimmer of something watching from Bayo. Months had passed since the first attack, and the cityscape of Earth had become a familiar backdrop to the unlikely trio. Rex's life, once defined by combat missions and orders, had morphed into something he hadn't anticipated, a delicate, chaotic rhythm shared with two alien sisters whose presence had once felt alien in every sense. The threat to the twins had never fully disappeared. Factions from Lysari continued to lurk in the shadows, testing defenses, probing weaknesses. But the twins were no longer just the scared girls who had clutched at his armor on the roof that rainy night. They were sharp, capable, and startlingly resilient. And Rex, scarred and hardened by years of war, had softened in ways he hadn't expected. It had become routine, sort of. Arya still dragged him into her wild escapades, turning tactical drills into obstacle courses and laughing uproariously whenever he got tangled in her antics. Lyra had become obsessively meticulous, analyzing every motion, every strategy, every human instinct Rex demonstrated, until he joked that she knew him better than he knew himself. The three of them had grown into a strange, unpredictable family. But even in this bubble of trust and laughter, danger loomed. One night, as they were reviewing the twins' security matrices, an alert flashed across the suite's monitors. An unidentified craft had breached the city's orbital perimeter. Rex's instincts screamed immediately. This wasn't a scouting party, it was a strike team. And it wasn't coming for anyone but them. He moved without hesitation. Arya and Lyra, for the first time in months, didn't argue or protest. Years of training and shared danger had forged a bond of trust that ran deeper than words. They worked together seamlessly, preparing defensive measures and analyzing escape routes. Arya hacked security drones with dexterity that impressed even Rex, while Lyra calculated tactical trajectories and weapon trajectories, her cool voice cutting through the panic. The strike team arrived faster than anyone expected. They stormed the penthouse with weapons glowing like liquid fire, ready to overwhelm. Rex positioned himself between the twins and the attackers, pulse rifle blazing. Every move he had ever learned in a lifetime of combat was sharpened to perfection, dodging, firing, and protecting simultaneously. Arya darted through the chaos, disabling attackers with agility and wit, turning every object into a weapon or a shield. Lyra, calculated and precise, redirected turrets and laser grids, using technology and intellect to even the odds. Together, they were unstoppable. Rex glanced at them mid-battle, heart hammering. He had never been more proud or more terrified. The twins weren't his responsibility anymore. They were his partners in survival, his family, and he would not fail them. The fight was fierce but brief. The attackers, no match for the combined human ingenuity and Lysarian brilliance, were routed. They fled into the night, leaving behind a mess of scorched walls, broken glass, and the faint hum of cooling plasma. The twins were safe. For the first time, there was a pause, a quiet moment amidst the chaos. Arya leaned against Rex's shoulder, exhausted but grinning. And Lyra's eyes, normally so analytical, glowed softly with gratitude. Words weren't needed. The bond they had formed over months of shared danger, trust, and laughter spoke louder than any declaration could. Later that night, in the quiet aftermath, Central Command offered Rex a transfer back to the front lines. Commendations, accolades, a way out. He shook his head. No, he said simply. Arya let out a delighted whoop, and Lyra simply nodded, satisfied. They had made their decision months ago, when they realized that life with Rex was no longer just about safety. It was about connection, trust, and the warmth of a human heart that refused to let them fall. The embassy eventually settled into routine. But now, Rex's place was permanent in the penthouse. He shared meals, laughter, and strategy sessions with the twins, fully integrated into their world. He was their shield, their teacher, and their unlikely friend. And the twins. They were no longer just royal children in need of protection. They were confident, capable, and fierce in their own right, shining examples of how trust, courage, and teamwork could overcome even the deadliest threats. Rex often found himself watching them, thinking of how far they had all come from scared, glowing girls to unstoppable allies who could face the galaxy together. He had been hired to guard them, to act as a living shield. But along the way, he had become something more. Their friend, their family, their anchor, he realized with a quiet satisfaction that this was better than any medal or commendation, better than any war honor. He had been hired to protect twin alien sisters, and somehow, in doing so, he had found a home, a place where he was needed, loved and appreciated, not just as a soldier, but as a human in the galaxy of shifting alliances and unseen threats. One truth remained unshakable. No one could replace him in their lives, and no one would ever breach the fortress they had built together. He would always be their protector.